Welcome to Bitcoin Escape Plan. Today we are going to go over all of the important key levels that are going to come up in the next week or so for Bitcoin. Definitely something you're going to want to stay tuned for. You can go check out my most recent video if you want to see what I think is going to happen for 2026 in general. I always like to start off these videos with the 4-hour chart just to give some extra value to anyone who's showing up early. If you're new here, like and subscribe. My name is Jacob. I give Bitcoin analysis, and I'm right often enough that I made a YouTube channel about it. All right, so the important levels to watch right now, I would say, really, is this guy. This is the most important one. This is the anchored VWAP. I talk about this all the time. This is drawn from 2009 to now. I have not touched it since then. 95.5K. This guy right here, about 96K on the anchored volume profile. I've also talked about that a million times. So the point between those two, as well as this 4-hour Fibonacci pivot that has opened up, really from 95 to 96, if you want to be boring, you just need to pay close attention to what the price does there. It's looking strong at the moment. It has since Thursday, Friday. I believe it was Thursday where it broke above the daily SMA and started to actually show some momentum. This does look good. It does look bullish at the moment, so I would expect we're going to see a reaction here as opposed to a reaction back down here. So this is not going to be a video where I'm turbo bearish at the moment, even though yesterday's video was a little bit more bearish because I do think we are going to be bearish later into the year. But what I really want to focus on today is just, what is likely to happen around this level and what does it mean if we're going to go higher? What's going to actually happen at those levels. So in the short term, what I would pay attention to is this 4-hour Fibonacci pivot. We won't necessarily rock it to 95.5 or 96 today. That's something that I expect by the end of the week. We'll go over that later in the video. So at the moment, that's what I would be paying attention to, is specifically this guy, 94.1K, which we've also talked about a million times, and 95K. Before we keep going, you can go over to Bitcoin Escape Plan real quick. Check out, got a couple more articles up, just released this morning's article as well, where I go over a lot of the levels that I'm going to be talking about in this video. And then you really want to check out this one. Is Bitcoin still correlated to SPY? That one is packed full of value. You're going to need to be subscribed to get the full amount, but that's all right. You probably already are if you're watching this video. Back to the chart. So if we bring it up to the monthly time frame real quick, as you can see, 96K has opened up as a Fibonacci pivot. Now, you already know, if you are a viewer of the channel, I've been talking about 96K since over here in November. A long time that I've just been repeating that it's important. Same as I was talking about it in April. So definitely something to be watching across multiple time frames. Previously we were watching it on the 4-hour, really across every time frame because of this guy, because you can see the anchored volume profile. That used to be the point of control. The point of control has actually flipped down here to 87.8 because we were lower. So you could kind of see this as like a base is forming that could give us the ability to move higher, but it may also possibly just be that this is about to get thinner, not thicker, and then this in turn is going to get thicker, and we're just going to continue to drop lower and lower, unfortunately. But this Fibonacci pivot is opened on both the weekly and the monthly time frames, which is very important to watch. So to briefly recap what I think is going to happen for the monthly, and then I'll get back into this shorter time frame. On the monthly, I believe that we're going to chop until about March, and then we are going to fail the SMA spectacularly and start dropping for the rest of the year. That's my baseline assumption. Again, you can go watch yesterday's video to see the whole description of that. But the important levels between now and then, really over the course of the next couple weeks, I would say, is going to be, like I said, 95 is a 4-hour Fibonacci pivot. 95.5 is the 4-hour anchored VWAP. The anchored VWAP is the one that is more important to me. That's like really, it's just a great source of information. Like anytime we interact with that, the price is pretty clear about what's going on. Like when we failed it, it was really clear And then as you can see, we attempted it and failed it, attempted it and failed it, attempted it and failed it. And yeah, like you can look at other levels of the chart and it'll tell you the same information. But for me, this is something that I drew once on the chart years ago. I just put it back to the 2009 candle and I don't touch it. I never touch it. I just pay attention to when it shows up on the chart, which is not that often, but it showed up in April of last year as well. So again, would have been super important at that time. It just doesn't happen that often on the 4 hour, and therefore we got to pay attention to it. So that's what I'm paying attention to now is, do we see strength at it or do we give it right back up? That's what we want to be watching for. So past that level, if we are somehow able to actually show strength around that level, start filling up this whole part of the anchored volume profile, which as you can see, it is filling up, like there is a decent amount of volume here, certainly more volume than at these levels, which is a good sign, but it doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to flip higher into those levels. It's more likely that we're going to flip lower into these levels, and these people who thought they were buying at a good price are now going to be not in profit as well. Why do I believe that? I believe that mostly because of this guy. So this is the important one that I was saying, 106.8K. I've been saying this for so long. I've been saying this since back here in October, November. 106.7K is just as important, 106.8, whatever, just as important as when I used to talk about 117.6 all the time. Rest in peace, 117.6. You were my best friend. All of that has been wiped. That's not even an important level on the chart anymore, which is so sad because I love talking about 117.6. Anyways, so the really important one is going to be 106.8. I think in a best case scenario for Bitcoin, we see strength at 96 by the end of the week. If we close above it, cool. We can keep making a push for this guy. This is currently sitting at 102.5, 102.6. This is a previous, I believe, monthly close. I believe monthly is yellow. Let's see. Monthly is yellow. Yep. So that one is very important. This guy right here. Oh, that's 114. I'm looking at the wrong one. What the hell level was I talking about? I'm so professional, guys. This one right here. Yeah, 102.1. 102.2. That's a key monthly level. That's currently where the weekly SMA has dropped to. This I really think this is the important part though. The weekly SMA was way above. It's obviously we've been below it since literally October. We've just been dropping consistently, and that has pulled the weekly SMA down below this 106.8K Fibonacci pivot. What does that mean? That means that we are less likely to show strength here as opposed to seeing that as a key failure. Like I'm assuming that this is going to be the highest that we possibly can go in this leg right here, but I am anticipating it to be a failure. So I don't actually think we're going to hit 102.2 like right away. I think that this is going to continue to drop. That's what it looks like. That's still pretty sharp. It doesn't look like it's curving or flattening out. It still looks like it's going to continue dropping at the moment. My original base case was that it's going to drop all the way down to here, but we've shown a lot of strength since then. So it's more likely that it'll be somewhere above that, possibly even in this other region, which this one is really important as well. I don't think that it really shows up quite as much on the chart as it does like psychologically. White is a weekly level. Yellow is a monthly level. So technically we do have some, over here in June. That's the only time where we have a weekly close that's relevant at that level at 101. And then the monthly one is slightly higher, and that's from all the way back here. That's actually from 2024, early 2025 that we have those levels. They weren't prominent for the rest of 2025. We were just too high above them. So they're important insofar as it's been about a year since we've retested them, besides obviously breaking below to the downside. But I would anticipate that that's kind of going to be not quite as definitive as 106.8K. This is kind of how I think about it. If we touch 106.8K, I would say there's a very high likelihood that we're going to drop lower. If we show strength in it, then honestly, I'm wrong, and we're probably going to go higher. I don't really think that that's going to happen, but that's what would be reality. Is if we show strength around there, we're going higher. I don't think the same can be said for 99 to 101. I don't think it's a case of clear cut reversal to either side. I don't think that it indicates, oh, okay, we're back at these levels. Now we're going to go to new all time highs. Like, I don't think that that's the case. I do believe that for 106.8K. I think it's much more likely that we get close to these levels, even possibly that we break slightly above it and just can't get above this guy, 104.7 and 105.6, both levels that I've talked about a million times. And as you can see, kind of important here on the weekly and monthly time frames. We just have multiple weeks that either close at one or the other, especially this guy. Look at that. Look at how many times we close at 105.7. That's a lot of weeks, multiple weeks. So it's reasonable that the price is going to want confirmation of whether or not we can reclaim that. I just don't know that I believe it personally. Anchored volume profile is very thin here. So we would really, in fairness, we are filling this level out. We're filling this range out pretty well. But we would still need to fill out all in there and then continue, as opposed to filling out in there and then chopping in here, which is really kind of what I expect. And really the story of like here to here was the anchor volume profile used to be thicker up at the top, and most of this got liquidated. Most of the people who had in this range were liquidated, as well as in here. And now this is by far the thickest part of the channel, but we still have all of these people who are now not in profit. Like a decent amount of the short-term holders are not in profit. So I just don't see it being that likely that the equivalent amount of volume here gets filled in this level enough that we then can push not only back above the weekly SMA to show strength, which, just to give a quick history lesson real quick, we don't have a ton of instances where we're below the weekly SMA for that long of a period of time and where we stay above it. So here, this is 2021, and this does look kind of similar to this guy in 2025, but this looks a lot more like that to me, where we may be seeing this. This might be what we're about to see, is a rise into March, that's what I've been talking about, is that I think that this move that we're in right now is not going to be a January move. I think this is going to be a prolonged move into February or March. This is what I would expect to see on the chart now, is the SMA has continued to drop and curve down, which is what's happening. It's curved, it's dropping, it's dropping. I think a best case scenario is going to be somewhere between here and here. As it continues dropping, we could see strength above. It'll be around a key Fibonacci pivot level though. So this essentially is 106.8 that I've been talking about. This should be, if we rocket past 96, we show a lot of strength. We rocket past 101, 1.2, and 106.8 would be the ceiling that we can touch before, oh shit, it looks like we're going back to the SMA, and then we're properly failing it. That's my base case scenario. Just to see one more example, let's look at 2018. This one isn't quite as relevant, even though I did use 2017 for all of my analysis last year. We're just not really seeing this same pattern on the chart. It's possible that we could be seeing this guy. It does look a little bit more like 2022, but this is kind of a very similar. I actually normally look at this on the monthly. So on the weekly, it does look very similar. So once it's already broken the SMA, it takes a period of multiple weeks where it is below, it's back above, it's back below, it's back above, it's back below, it stays below. So that's my baseline assumption, is because every time it does that, every time it touches it, it's only a matter of time before it needs to go back below. And maybe it has another high, but this is 2021. So that's in a bear market or a bull market still. And we're not in one anymore. Hate to break it to you. This is not what a bull market looks like. It looks like a consolidation period. Is there a possibility that it just breaks out to the upside? Sure. If a bunch of magic money comes out of nowhere. Problem is, magic money doesn't start getting printed till over here, January 2027. That's when the stable coins go live. Again, I've made other videos about it. Go check it out there. The main levels are 96, 99 to 101, and 106.8. Depending on how price reacts to 96, which at the moment looks like it's going to show strength, looks like it's not going to have that much trouble there. So it's very possible that 99 to 101 is the actual important level here. It's early in the week. It's only Monday, so it's hard to say if we see a spike up to this early in the week and then we fail it, and then we get another retest next week, or if we get enough strength for the rest of this week where we break right above it, and then cool, we are going to get a run for 99 to 101 the week after that. And then I would still assume that the 106.8K is not going to happen in January. I would be surprised. Somewhere in here we're going to chop. I don't know where it is exactly, but somewhere in here we're going to chop. And maybe it's not at 96 because we spent all of December trying to get that and failing it. So maybe once we've gotten that shiny toy, we're going to be so excited that we want to go play at 100K again. But that's where I would imagine we actually spend a bunch of time, is between 96 and 101, kind of bouncing around there. That'll be the new range that we've been spending here, because in general, I expect it to be boring right now. While gold and SPY are still very exciting, there's no reason for people to switch over to Bitcoin, which has been less reliable for the last year than those two assets have been. So most smart money is not going to randomly move in here, other than to dollar cost average. Anybody who really understands what's happening knows anytime we're below the weekly SMA, it's a good time to buy, historically speaking. So what would I be paying attention to over the course of the next week? Very simple, just the same three levels that I've repeated a million times. This video is going to be shorter than the other rambles because there's nothing else for me to say. The only other thing is, we can pay attention to the anchored VWAP, like I was saying. That's going to be very telling for us. If we can show strength there and we continue rising higher, then the next band, actually no, on the 4 hour, it should be the highest band. Yeah. So the only other one we can look at is the 1 hour. This is important, actually. I didn't even know I was going to talk about this in this video. There you go. This is a YouTube exclusive. Right here, this is the 1 hour one. So the 1 hour one is a different shape at the moment. I know it's hard to see because I have all these other fucking lines. I'm so sorry. Terrible analyst. On the 4 hour one, we're interacting with the top band. On the 1 hour, this is the top band. We're way below the top band. This is the middle band. We're way below the middle band. So what we have to assume based on this, look at this. We gave up the middle band all the way in November. We've been below ever since. So we definitely look way more bearish on the 1 hour than we did on the 4 hour one. The 4 hour one looks like there is some hope, but we wouldn't have that hope confirmed until we touch this guy, which that's right at 100 at the moment. I don't know why I'm failing to speak. 100.1 essentially is where that is. By the time we touch it, though, that's going to drop to 100. And what I would be expecting is just a reaction there. As you can see here, these levels are right around there. This is a break above, it breaks back below. This is a break above, it breaks back below. Same thing here. This is not like an exact level. Like, it's not going to tell you exactly like this is where the top is, this is where the top is, but it is going to show you, okay, the closes are pretty close to it, and we spend a lot of time at that level. We spend a bunch of time checking, is this level safe to go above, or do we need to break back below? And that's what this was, is we couldn't get quite high enough we're nowhere near this guy. But this would have needed to continue climbing if we were going to safely leave this one behind, and we didn't. Instead we gave it up in November when we started dropping. So what does that tell us? It tells us we're in a bearish continuation unless we can break above that, which is pretty much what I already said in the earlier part of the video, where we would need to see a strong reaction to 99 to 101. I think it's more likely that that's the one we're going to get rejected off of. We're already above it on the 1 hour for this level. It's much lower than on the 4 hour. So this is at 88 essentially, right around 88. We already showed strength at that around Thursday, where we broke the daily SMA. Might actually have been Friday, but right around there. So that's the last thing I would be looking at, is on the 1 hour chart. Same thing, same anchored VWAP. Haven't drawn it, in years. Just left it exactly where it is on my chart. I would not expect that this week. I would expect that probably more likely next week. If we close above 96 this week, I would expect we see another push here. But this very well, this could be, I could be repeating this for the next couple weeks. It's not necessarily just like here already. I think that that's going to be a super important one, but I don't see it as super likely that we're going to get above it. And the top band is at 112. I just don't see it. I don't see it. 106.8 is still the really important one. And that would mean we'd break back above the middle band, well above the middle band, on our way to the higher band before failing. But I don't know if we see it. I don't know. I don't know if the market makers like the argument better for the price failing at 100K now. Like I said in the newsletter, and like I've said in other videos, I really think that if there's one news story that the news stations are going to run for 2026, it's going to be how low can it go? That's the actual story. And in order for that to be the story, we would need to see an invalidation at 100. Because otherwise the story is, can it get back above 100? And that very well may be the story right now in this short term. In Q1, that very well may be the main story, is can Bitcoin get back above 100? But I think if it fails that, that's when we get into the territory of, okay, how low can it go? That's the actual question at that point. And then I really expect it to continue to go lower. I think that is going to be the case, way more likely than these two pivots. These two pivots have opened on the weekly as well, but even that guy's opened on the weekly as well. But I think it's way more likely that we see this guy than that guy right now. I'd love to be wrong. Obviously, I'm still holding a bunch of Bitcoin. I've only sold a little bit of it. But yeah, that's what I would be expecting in the short term. Strong reaction to 96, push up into 98 to 101, some consolidation, possibly a failure there back down to 96. In a best case scenario, strength above both of those levels into 106.8K and strength there. But I do think it's more likely that we see a failure there. Because even look, we failed below there here in December. Originally, we wicked it but closed below it. And then in January, we wicked it, closed way below it. We're able to get right to it in May, closed above, but then gave it back up, rose one final time, held strong above it, went back above one more time, and then failed it. So I think 106.8K is super important. Really, really important. It's obviously it's not you're not going to see any headlines about 106.8K except for my headlines. The headlines are going to be about 100K. It's just an easier number for people to wrap their heads around. But 106.8 is the real decider, I think, of are we back on? Is the bull market back on? Or, oh shit, do I need to consider taking profits and switching into gold and other assets? That's what I would be looking at on the chart. I'm probably just going to repeat the same levels for the next several weeks. Like and subscribe. Thank you so much for your support. I'll see you in the next one.